She worked very hard on this one, guys. So she had put out a lot of these things that she thought that could be very helpful to most of the news people that are learning the presentations. And so take lots of notes. I think it's going to help a lot of people who's just getting started with the presentations.
All right,
beautiful
awesome.
wife, Tia Tran.
Good morning, everyone.
Morning.
How are you guys doing?
Amazing.
Awesome, awesome. So just like Shaq said, you guys know I have kids, right? And I have 3. So does anyone here have like an 8-year-old around there? Little kids? There we go. You guys might know 8-year-olds are really demanding. It's so demanding. My 8-year-old, I catch myself arguing with him all the time. 30 minutes pass and I'm like, you know what? I'm arguing with an 8-year-old and I need to really look at myself and why I'm arguing with him. But I found out that it's because sometimes he can be so demanding. Guys, he'll be like, get me some water, get me some food. Instead of saying, Mommy, can you get me some water, please? So I found this trick that I use now where I just ask him, when he's like, hey, get me some water, I'll tell him, oh, was that a question you just asked me? And then immediately he'll say, oh, Mommy, can you get me some water, please? Immediately. And then his tone changes too by the way he says it. So now I say that to him all the time. And you learn a lot from kids, right? So I really want to take that into consideration what we do here. When we meet with people, sometimes we make statements like Samir said. We say, we are the best company ever. You need life insurance. Like, your kids need this. Your wife needs this. But now you're kind of pushing them away because they're like, oh, immediately now their defenses go up and they want to prove to you why they might not need it. Just like when Liam says, get me some water, immediately I'm like, you have 2 legs, you can go get it. Go get it yourself. But when he asks me nicely, I'm like, oh, my poor baby, of course I'm going to get you some water. So it's complete, you're getting the same results, but if you're smart about it, you just change the way you ask it, and you can get it with them being happy and you being happy. And so Thomas, if you can help me pull up the presentation, I'm going to get started first with the intro. So the intro is going to be very common sense, not this one, the other one. Thank you. Okay, so the intro is going to be very common sense. As you guys see it pop up, you're going to be like, I don't know why you put these questions down, but a lot of times common sense questions is not that common. Just because, especially when you're out field training for your first time, or you're doing your presentation for your first time, you're pretty much like, hey, I have a script I need to follow. I don't want to go off that script, and you forget to be a human, right? So now you're just a robot reading off a script. But, there's something Shaq always says, is you cannot take your personality and put it on somebody else.
Right.
But what you can do is take your people skills and put it on somebody else. Because our business is a lot about people skills as well. So maybe I'm not able to give this, Adric, where are you, my motherly skills on somebody else, but I can tell somebody, hey, remember to smile. Don't interrupt people when they're talking. And ask questions when you can. Don't just talk 10, 15 minutes at a time without the other person saying a single word. Right? So those are kind of the people skills that you want to teach other people as well. So going into the presentations, simple questions. First thing I ask is, how are you? Right? How are you? Am I pronouncing your name correctly? This is a big one because the middle class is huge. You sit down with all types of people with all types of names. And at the beginning, when I first started the business, I would go through an hour-long presentation. Afterwards, they're like, hey, by the way, that's not my name. Right? So this happened to me before all the time. So you want to ask, am I pronouncing your name correctly? What did the trainee say to get you on this call with us today? This is huge. If the trainee is setting the appointment or a referral is setting the appointment for you, you want to find out what they said. I've gotten all types of answers here. People have said, oh, you sell life insurance. Great. Right? Or they'll say, oh, you want to share some financial information with me. That's also great. I've also gotten, hey, they just asked me for a favor to meet with me. That's also great. Right? But I've also gotten, oh, yeah, no, I don't know. They said I need to buy something. I don't really want to. I just came on here to give you a hard time, which they never do. Right? But those are some things that you can get, and you know what kind of battle you're about to have, or if it's going to be an easy battle, or if you have to pull out all your ammo there. And then, can you tell me a little bit about yourself? There's one person that everybody loves, and that's themselves. Right? I hope so. So, they all want to talk about themselves. They love hearing their own voice. They can go for hours at a time talking about themselves. You do want to cut them off there at some point though. And then what do you do for work? How long have you been doing that? Do you enjoy it? And what do you do for fun? This is huge because now hey, maybe they're talking about their job and they're like, hey, I've been working for the government for 10 years. I love it. They've been treating me well. Now they probably have some group life insurance later. And it's going to be really hard for you to replace that unless you know that ahead of time. So then you know not to attack their company, but you attack the group life insurance. Also, if they're like, hey, I've been working here for 3 years, really hate it, just doing it to pay my bills, you might also know you might be able to recruit them later on as well. And how many kids do you have? How old are they? What are their names? You want to know this, especially how long have you both been married and how did you guys meet each other? This is huge, right? People, if you're sitting down with partners, they love talking about how they first met each other. Right? Any time somebody asks me, how did you guys first meet? I always take that as an excuse to make fun of Peter. So yeah, when we first met, it was at a karaoke bar. He was wearing a turtleneck. Right? It was a button-down turtleneck all the way up. He had skater boy hair, so all the way down his face. It had glasses that were literally broken in the middle. I'll take them. That's how I first met them. He would come up to me and he'd say, can I have your number? So I would say, I don't remember my phone number. My story. Right? So people love talking about that. You get them laughing. Right? So they ignore all the fights they might have had. It gets them laughing, gets them on the same page as well. So next, Thomas. So that's the intro there. And then the first few slides, these are some of the questions I asked. First thing you want to ask is, by the way, has anyone ever done any financial work for you before? And then also, how long do you think $25,000 will last you for? So some of this might be confusing for anyone who hasn't seen the presentation yet, but once you see it, it will all make sense. These two questions really lets you know who you're dealing with as well. If they say $25,000 might last me 3-4 years, they might not have a lot of money for you to work with. But if they say a few months here and there, then that's something you know who you're working with. Also, have you ever heard of Primerica Financial Services before? Fantastic. How have you heard of us? Are you familiar with the New York Stock Exchange? Have you ever heard of Forbes? With no TV or radio advertisement, helping families with purely word of mouth, can you see why we are proud to be ranked the #1 most trusted life insurance company? And are you familiar with any of our partners? So I don't think you can go back and forth between the presentation, right, Thomas? So this is kind of what I asked before we go into our partners here. It's okay, Thomas. I think you could just stick into this. You guys use your visualization skills, right? Yeah, here we go. So this is where we ask that, right? So have you guys ever heard of any of our partners here? Yeah. And then, yeah, it's like Cindy said, yeah. She's answering it for me, right? So this is really good because you're asking them the questions, and with them answering yes or, oh yeah, I do business with Bright House, my 401k is with Lincoln, whatever they say, now immediately they can't go back and say, hey, I want to do research on your company. You just said you've heard of Forbes. You just said you heard of the New York Stock Exchange. You just said you did business with some of our partners. So now immediately that builds that credibility there with the questions you just asked and they agreed with. And if you go back to the question, Thomas. Thank you. We're just going to keep it to this presentation now. Next. And then, do you guys see this? Yeah. Okay, so the compound interest slide, this is probably the slide where I ask the most questions. The whole presentation is pretty much all the questions. I'll say, so first thing is, how many people do you personally know that have $250,000 to invest? Right? Sorry guys, that part is from the partner slide. Okay? How many people do you personally know that have $250,000 to invest? That's when I talk about our partners there. And then I say, well, how many people do you personally know that might have $25 to invest? Right? Do you see how that's a win-win situation all around? And then now goes the compound interest. I'll say, in your opinion, is $200 a month a lot of money? Let's say I tie you up to a lie detector and I ask you, how much money do you spend unnecessarily a day? Some days it might be more, some days it might be less. But if, sorry, here we go. Why did you mess me up here? But, what would you say you spend unnecessarily on average? Right? This is a good question as well. Shaq talked to us about this because now you know how much they spend a day. If they say they spend at least $50 a day, you can calculate to how much that is in a month, right? And a lot of the questions you ask, you're not just asking the questions, right? You're asking them either to get them to a result that you want them to go to, or you're asking them to collect information to use that later on as well. And then also, okay, so let's say you said that already, okay. And I say, I know some of that might bring you joy, but if you set your mind to it, could you set aside $200 out of that a month? Right, sorry guys, it's small, okay. And then I say, nowadays, most people don't save their money underneath their couch. Where do most people save their money? And what do most people save to that?
Bank.
The bank. Yes. Do you know about how much interest rate they give you at a savings account at the bank? And what do most people say? Nothing. Exactly. Right? And I'll ask them, do you see your money growing in there? They'll say no, maybe a few cents here and there. And then I'll say, if you get gas, get groceries, even buy a cup of coffee, are the prices increasing or is it staying the same over the years? Increasing. Right? So can you agree with me that leaving your money at the savings account at the bank is guaranteed to make you lose value in your money over time?
Yes.
Yes. Right? So, and then I ask the questions, go over 3%, 6%, 12%. How much do you think you would get a 12% rate of return? That's a good question there. Don't guess, they always get it wrong. They'll say about 500,000. And this is when I say, oh my God, that was my first guess as well when I first saw this. Right? And then I say at the end, I'm sure you've learned a lot about Albert Einstein in school, but has school ever taught you about compound interest and how to have it work for you in your real life? They'll say, no. I say, how about the banks? They'll say, heck no. Right? And then I ask them, how many people do you feel like deserve to hear this information? Right? So that's that slide over there. And then the disappearing man. You guys know the disappearing man slide? All right, so this is where we kill off the husband. We'll say, Okay, so over there, the questions I ask is, what do you notice about the money they're making and the money they're spending? They'll say they're living paycheck to paycheck. And then I'll look at the bills and I'll say, looking at these bills together, are these just everyday, ordinary bills, or is there anything unique about them? And I'll also say, in your opinion, what could be the worst thing that could happen to this family financially? They'll say losing their job, usually. And then say, what's even worse than losing your income temporarily? And they'll say, permanently somebody dies, right? And you say, exactly. If that happens and the family has no life insurance, too little life insurance or the wrong type of life insurance, what do you think the family will lose? Then they'll list up all the things that they will lose, right? I'll ask, if God forbid something happened to you, can we bring you back? We cannot bring you back, but we can bring back the income that makes life possible for the family you leave behind, right? So it's a little funny the way I'm saying it because I'm not saying it in a conversation, right? There's a few statements I'll make in between, but these are just the main questions I'll ask throughout the conversation. And then if God forbid something were to happen to you, do you want your family's financial situation to be better, the same, or worse? Hopefully they say better. And you say if something were to happen to you today, would they be better financially? And how important would it be to make, for you to make sure it is better? Right? Hopefully they'll say very important. Then I'll say how much coverage do you currently have? Do you feel overinsured, underinsured, or not sure? And now, once you go into this, now you go into the quadrant. Sheila did a really good job last time putting all the questions she asked to destroy cash value. So I just put a few for group life here as well. So when group life, when you go over those slides, the questions I ask within those slides is, when you don't own something, how much control do you have over it? This one is what I found works all the time. Because they'll say, oh, nut, right? And they'll go into a story kind of about their home, maybe their car, something that they don't own, right? And immediately there, if they say you have no control over it, you know already that you've destroyed group life, right? If you were to get a better job with better pay, better commute, would you take it? They say yes, usually. Have you ever noticed your company change company benefits? Did they have to discuss that with you before making the decision? Or did you just get notified by email or mail? right? And then what are the chances of you being able to be actively go back to work when you're already fighting for your life in the hospital? I say that when I go over the slide, the certification of the benefits not being paid out due to actively working. And then can you see why having coverage solely through your job is so risky? And when it comes to your family, how much risk do you want to take? Okay. And the last one, so the theory. So once you go over the quadrant, you destroy cash value. These are the questions I ask on the theory of decreasing responsibility slide. And this is the slide where I close it up. And this is where you go into quoting them and being able to get the application. So the first thing I ask is, has anyone ever explained to you how much coverage you need and for how long you need it? Right? Would you say you have high responsibilities right now? A lot of times here they're like, oh yeah, too many responsibilities, got too many kids. Can you see why you might need a lot of coverage right now where your responsibilities are high? And then once you go into that slide, you go into where they are in the future, right? How old will your youngest be 35 years from now? Will they still be relying on you financially at 55 years old, right? When you're about to retire, your biggest worry might not be how much you have in life insurance. What will your biggest concern be, right? This is amazing. You want them to answer it, right? And then when you pass away and you have $1 million in your investment account, who does that money go to? Right? So you want to overcome those objections of, hey, term ends at the end of 35 years. Right? You want to overcome that and them answer it and them say it out of their mouth so then you don't even get that question later on. Yes?
So if you don't mind, I'd like for you to do what you're doing with them seeing exactly this. So you can still see your questions on your screen, but I want you to walk them through it from this, because I really like how you do this, but I want them to see it.
Okay. So do you want me to say it with the statements too or just the questions? Like, do you want me to just role play this whole thing?
Yeah.
Okay, awesome. Okay, so Jen, all right, let's role play with you. All right, so Jen, has anyone ever explained to you how much coverage you need and how long you need it for?
No.
No? All right, I would love to explain this to you. This is what we call the theory of decreasing responsibility. So let's say, Jen, right now, you might need a lot of coverage because you might have some young children. What are your children's names again?
Ruby and Sir.
Rumi and Sir, and how old are they?
6 and 8.
6 and 8? Awesome, my son is 8 as well. Right, and you might have some high debt, maybe a house mortgage, so the loss of your income can be devastating because you might not have a lot of money saved up yet, correct?
Yeah.
Right, so would you say right now your responsibilities are the highest?
Yes.
Yes, so can you see why you might need a lot of life insurance coverage right now?
Yes.
All right, so let's fast forward 35 years later though. 35 years later, how old will your kids be?
Oh God.
41?
43.
Yeah, 41 or 43, so older than you are now, right?
Yeah.
Would they still be relying on you financially at that time?
They better not.
Right, and you might have some lower debt, right? Your mortgage should be paid off. At this time, your income is coming from your investments, right? So at this later time, your responsibilities are lower. Would you need life insurance at this time?
I guess not, no.
No, because at this time, this is what we call you being self-insured. Right, so the question I usually ask you at this time, and I say, when you pass away, and let's say you follow our plan, Jen, and you have $1 million in your investment account, who does that money go to?
I guess.
Right, so at this point, you're self-insured. Can you see why you don't need to pay for life insurance for your whole life?
Yeah.
Yes. Now, Thomas, you go to the next one. Oh, this is the old slide. So for the new slide that we created, it will say 10%, 90%, right? So again, there's a 10% of a chance you might pass away too soon. And there's a 90% chance you might live too long. Can you tell me without a shadow of a doubt which one's gonna happen to you first?
No.
No, so, okay, good. So they always say no here, right? If sometimes you might get somebody who might say, you know, my parents passed away at a really young age, I'm probably gonna fall within that 10% mark, right? I've done that a few times. That's an easy close there. But most of the time they say no. So I'll say, can you see a reason why you have to be protected 100% of the time? And at this time, they say yes. And this is where the close comes in. They said yes to everything throughout the presentation. And I'll say, if I were to put a plan together for you, Jen, to make sure you're protected 100% of the time. How much could you set aside a month to take care of that?
Like 150.
150? All right, perfect. And is $150 something that's not gonna stress you out at all? You're not gonna break a sweat when it comes every month?
So I spend that at dinner.
Yes, exactly. So that's, I always wanna reaffirm that that works, right? Because I sit down when I field train, right? Sometimes there's a lot of single guys. And sometimes they throw out crazy numbers. They're like 2,000.
Oh my
I'm
God.
like, is that gonna make you break a sweat? And they're like, no, let's just do like 500. So you wanna kind of figure out, is that really something, a plan that they're gonna stick with in the long term, right? And I ask this question because this is really where you figure out, are they even gonna qualify with us? Which is, have you ever applied for private life insurance before? Right now, they might say, yeah, you know, it didn't go through, I got declined. That's for you to know, that's a red stop sign, right? Also, this is a good time for you to now talk about the process close. If they say, no, I've never applied for private life insurance before, and they only have group life, you can say, okay, it's a little bit different than job insurance. Let me talk you through the process of how that works. And now you can just do the process close on that. And then you want to run some quotes. You'll say, how old are you? Are you a tobacco, nicotine smoker? Any major health issues or any medications you're taking? Good for you to know as well. And the last thing is, who do you know that's responsible like yourself, that deserves the same information, and then who else? Right, so these, I know it was a little funny. Maybe I should have put like screenshots of the presentation in it, right, to see me asking the questions like this. But once you go through the presentation, you kind of role play and you make the statements in it as well. These questions are something that really helps me. What I basically say is I just question somebody into the close. I just ask questions and questions and questions, and when I'm training somebody, the thing that I always tell them before I do the presentation is just write down all the questions you hear me ask, because I know if they go out and they do it on their own, it doesn't matter if they say the statement's wrong, as long as they ask these questions, they're gonna be able to get the close. Right? Good, Samir?
Very good.
Okay, thank you.